Hello, everyone, and welcome to Snap Take. It's Glazer of Snap Judgments, the official podcast of Marvel Snap Zone. We've got a full review of this week's Spotlight Caches for you. It is the last week of the Scar Big Dumb Idiot season. We've got Beta Ray Bill, we've got the biggest and dumbest of all idiots, Galactus, and we've got Elsa Bloodstone. All the decks you could possibly want for these cards, and so much more. Before we get started, though, please hit that sub, like, and comment button. It helps us grow. We bring you more brand new decks, more decks that work at the highest levels of Marvel Snap than anyone. We get exclusive decks from top players all the time. We bring you the best stuff. We bring you a full show every day. All we ask is that you hit that sub button, help us grow, help us reach more people, help us fight that YouTube algorithm. Thank you. All right, some quick reminders. This is a daily show. We have at least 3 decks every day and numerous recurring segments, including custom cards and more. Custom cards, by the way, will be tomorrow. If you're interested, check the Drew Berry Snap Discord. It's in the description to this video. We are kicking off our Black Order Season Pass giveaway tomorrow. Tomorrow's video will be the first day that you can enter to win the Black Swan Season Pass. Last Sunday, not this past Sunday, a Sunday before that one, we covered card acquisition for Series 4 and 5 cards. So if you've been looking to optimize that to get the most cards for the least amount, if you're free to play and need to know what to do, that video is for you. This past Sunday, a couple days ago, we broke down the Lambie Open. Lambie hosted a major tournament. The top 8 decks will shape the meta going forward. They always do in this type of tournament, so please pay attention to that. Saturday was the Marvel Snap Zone podcast. Check the Marvel Snap Zone YouTube. We had Lauren Whatevs and Schnierp on, and we talked about basically what the ideal version of Marvel Snap looks like, and we ranked features we want to see. We had a Series 4 and 5 tier list, so if you're looking for what cards to get, that's in Thursday's video. Then we have a giveaway sheet in the description. It's every active giveaway currently in Marvel Snap. If you are looking to get some free stuff from some cool people, check that out. And if you're interested, if you're willing, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/snapjudgments. Check it out. We offer some cool stuff. Finally, I'm here to help. If there's something I can do for you, if you're seriously and struggling, if you need help in any way with Marvel Snap, please shoot me a message on either Twitter or Discord. I am happy to help you individually. I promise. Might take a couple days, but I will get to it. All right, so our questions of the day. Dwight Kidd wants to know how often I do homebrews versus borrow decks. I find all these decks for my channel that I have to test. I don't really have a ton of time for homebrews. I homebrew all the time, and then I send it around to friends to test. I usually get decent results. I'm usually getting, I'm usually making good decks. These decks that are winning like 57, 58%. Once in a while, I break something, like for a couple weeks there, while no one was paying attention, Bounce was kind of broken, and I built a Bounce deck. Lambie's Bounce deck is based on mine. I accidentally built the same meta Darkhawk deck with Grandmaster that a lot of people have built and are running. I've got a She-Hulk version that I've got to cover at some point because it continues to win. That's running like the Darkhawk package in a Moon Girl She-Hulk deck that's really hard to beat. So I think that I brew a fair amount, but I almost always play borrowed decks because, well, full-time job, parent, second full-time job, content creation means I don't really have time to get an adequate amount of testing for my brews to really know where they would land. However, I almost always, once I get a feel for like the meta deck that everyone's playing, I don't really need to play it a lot because I'm playing against it enough to get the same feel. Scary Larry wonders how I'd make Electra viable. And the answer is relatively simple here. You make her 1/1, but she kills 2s. You take away that extra power. The 1/2 is nice, and I don't know if you need to make her the 2 killer, because what the 1/2 does is it says if Black Knight becomes a meta force, if they release enough cards that Black Knight becomes the deck, Electra becomes a hard counter. Something you can just put in your deck in the turn after if you can claim priority, and you should be able to claim priority against Black Knight decks, which are sort of trying to fuff around until they can find the right things to discard. Then you should be able to kill that Black Knight before they can discard. And if you can, then you're really, really strong in that matchup. Gunny T asks if I've ever ridden a horse with a hammer, and the only answer to that is I say the nay. You'll see why when we talk about our card this week. If you would like to have your questions read out in tomorrow's video, leave one in the comments. Our card is the horseman himself with the hammer, Beta Ray Bill. He releases on Tuesday, so this afternoon as you're watching this, as all cards do. He's a 4/6 that creates an 0/1. Series 5, 6,000 tokens. What do you get for your 6,000 tokens? On reveal, shuffle Stormbreaker into your deck, and Stormbreaker works just like Mjolnir, sorta. Mjolnir gives 6 power. Stormbreaker doubles Beta Ray's power, and it comes with the power itself, so that 0-1, don't sleep on that. Beta Ray is a minimum, barring, I guess, certain effects like Scorpion, of a 4-13. That's really great stats if you can get him to work. That's going to be the question because his curve is very, very strict. I have an important thought about this. I'm going to give you a TLDR for anyone who doesn't care about decks or variants or has Galactus or Elsa and isn't interested. We don't know how good Beta Ray is. Anyone who tells you they know how good Beta Ray is wrong. My suspicion is he's good, not great, because he's on the wrong part of the curve for what this deck needs. What we're looking for is a critical mass of Thor cards, or Thor's cards, right? We want enough cards that fit into that Thor's archetype that we can make a deck out of it. We cannot currently know if Beta Ray is the tipping point to making that a tier 1 deck. We can't. We can suspect, we can have hunches, but because it's a fundamental change in how these decks are built, or a fundamental extra card that's going to like change the balance of these decks, we can't know. Now, my suspicion is what has to happen is there has to be some sort of 2-drop that works, not a 4-drop, because you already have Thor on curve, right? Like you can play classic Thor on turn 3 or turn 4, and then you can play Jane Foster Thor on turn 5 and grab that Mjolnir. And that's the combo, right? Like you do that in every deck you're running classic Thor. Well, now you're running Beta Ray. So what's ultimately happening is you've got an extra chance of drawing it, but now your turn 4 is taken up because he costs 1 more than the Mighty Thor, classic Thor. Okay, that's nice, but it's a really strict curve if you want both to happen, right? So odds are you're only getting one to happen. Again, so far so good, right? Now, if you're only getting one to happen, is that much stronger than it is now? Hard to know. Hard to know how much that consistency, how much more often that one happens, matters. Now, if you change that to a 2, now you have extra turns for both of them, right? You have an extra turn to draw Thor. Classic, you have an extra turn to draw that 2-drop, and that would change the math of the deck. Beta Ray makes the curve tighter and smaller, so I don't think he's going to be as great, but I reserve the right to be wrong. That's why the advice, you're going to see it multiple times in this show, is going to be to, if you have the means to and the patience to, wait until Friday to figure out if you want to pick this card up. I always give you advice again on Friday, pre-weekend missions, and then advice again on Monday in a last chance review where I tell you absolutely, here's from what we know right now today, is this worth it or not? But I think Beta Ray is more in that vein than usual because we know where he goes. You're going to see the decks and you'll be like, yeah, duh, right? We know where he goes. We don't know how good he makes those decks. Better? Probably. Enough better? Questionable. All right. There is exactly one data mined variant for Beta Ray Bill. It is this Chase Conley one. It does not have a release date, but I want it. I love it. I think it's actually fantastic. It's very cartoony, and I think it looks great. I like it better than the base art by an awful lot. I wish we had a date for this. I wish it was the day after the card release like it used to be for all these new cards. I'm trying to get an answer for that internally, and I literally cannot, just for the record, why this month's cards came with no extra variants. Our Spotlight variant is this one. It's really cool. I don't like it as much as the Datamined one, but it is this variant. I think it's really cool. Am I getting it? Probably not. I'm debating it. I might go out of my way to get it. I get every card though, so like don't take that as a like endorsement. I'm a content creator. I have to know how things are. I have to be able to play them. I have to be able to test them. I have enough resources, and it's a tax write-off for me. Do as I say, not as I do, and remember, check the video unless like you're wealthy and willing to blow the money. Hey, if you have leisure money and are willing to, do what you want. But if you're trying to do this on a budget, then check last Sunday's video. I am opening for this Galactus. I have the Spotlight keys saved. I want this Galactus. I want the Thanos. That's the Infinity Gauntlet cover very badly. This Galactus is gorgeous, and I must own it. I don't think I want to gold it. I don't think I'm even going to split it. I'm going to get it to a gold border or a purple border. Maybe I keep everything at gold, but this might be purple, and just leave it alone. But it's beautiful, and I love it, and it's perfect, and I must have it. And I don't want this Elsa, like, in the slightest. I have 3 Elsas right now. I opened one from a random variant. I have the hip, and I got the end of the season one for her. Quick again, TLDR, Galactus is fun but not meta. Elsa is good but not good enough. Both of these cards are perfectly fine, perfectly acceptable plays. You don't really want to open caches for either of them. All right. Synergies for Beta Ray Bill. We're going to call him BRB sometimes. Thor and Jane Foster Thor are the easy synergies. That means he goes with Lockjaw. Because he creates a 0, he goes with Hitmonkey. Because that 0 is an on-reveal, he goes with Werewolf by Night. Because we can double it, it goes with Odin, Absorbing Man, and Grandmaster. Any of those make him a 624. A 424, which seems pretty nice. And Strength pumps for further buffs, i.e., since he's doubling his power. Things like Okoye, Nikaya, Nikia, and Forge will work amazingly here. We are assuming that ongoing buffs will not work with him, and we are like Captain America's buff will not double him +1 because that's never how it works. Neither will locations. Cool. So if you put neither will ongoing effect locations. Like the +5 location won't work, but your island would. We're going to feature a few decks that have most of these. We're not going to do the strength buff one, although we're getting closer and closer to a strength pump deck. We just need a couple more strength pumps, where like he might work with something like Shaw, because both he and Shaw and Dakin all want their strength bumped, but we don't have enough strength bumps and then ways to like actually synergize those strength bumps. That would be a good place for a high evolutionary like card, where any card that gains something when you get +1 gets +1 wherever it is, right? Something like that. Or any card that, yeah, something like that. I don't know how we word it, but something like that would be really, really cool. We're going to feature a few decks. If you really want Beta Ray Bill and you don't have Thor and Jane, please don't buy this card. But if you really want Beta Ray Bill and you would like, you have enough cards and you would like another deck for him, do me a favor. Shoot me a message on Discord. I'm in the Marvel Snap Zone Discord in the podcast chat with the host section, and I will be happy to help you. And if I'm not in there at that moment, it's the nicest community. Someone will help you, I promise. All right. The first few decks we feature, I like to feature a few of my creator friends that make really great videos about new cards. The absolute king of new cards, along with the king of custom cards, is Drewberry Snap. This is a really cool and original build. No one else had this, so huge props to Drewberry for this very cool idea. Basically, the idea here is you can fill a gene lane real easy with a bunch of zeros, right? And if you can fill that gene lane, like Valkyrie should be able to win, right? And if you just give up that lane while they have to play there, you win everywhere else because Beta Ray Bill and Thor are just huge, right? So imagine that lane that has Jean Grey, a Squirrel, an Ant-Man, and a Jane Foster. Now, all of a sudden, that's a really strong lane, right? That's 12, 13, 16 power, reasonable chance of winning. Your opponent has to actually respect and compete in that lane. Meanwhile, you've got Valkyrie to take out another of their lanes. And then you've got Beta Ray or Thor, which are huge elsewhere. Or you can Valkyrie, you can Valkyrie those, whatchamacallits, the Yellow Jacket Wasp type cards for extra value. This should be really cool. I don't know how good it is. It might be a meme, but it's a damn fun meme, so I'm for it. All right. We've got Gregor2424. This is a streamer that I'm very fond of. You should check out Gregor2424 over on Twitch. Gregor has a cool take on Thor Lockjaw. We're going to look at the more traditional Thor Lockjaw later, but this one says I can do multiple things. I can, we're also going to look at a werewolf deck later. We're also going to look at a pure Odin deck later, right? So this one says, all right, so I can Lockjaw into my combos, particularly Sarah, or I can just get a Wong and start throwing hammers into Wong, right? The second you get a hammer into a Wong, all of a sudden your Thor is a 316, your Beta Ray Bill is a 424. These are moving your werewolf around. If you Absorbing Man or Odin these, the numbers go off the chart, or Grandmaster these, the numbers go off the chart. You have Lockjaw to try and get these cards as much as possible to recycle them. This should be very cool. You've got Zabu and Sarah even because you've just gotten super explosive last turn of the game at that point, right? You're turning your werewolf into a 2-drop so that you can play it with multiple hammers and Grandmaster and just go to frickin' town. If you have Lockjaw out, you could even conceivably do these things with hammers in the deck and just start pulling hammers back out, which seems completely hilarious. All right, next up we have our friend Docty. You can check Docty out here on YouTube. He also Twitch streams, but YouTube is the main place. Also on Twitter. But Docty is amazing. This is a much more standard Hitmonkey build. I think it's very cool. Basically, it says, so last turn of the game, if I can get Werewolf out, I can make a huge Hitmonkey, right? Like, if I can get Sarah and Werewolf, sorry, I said Werewolf. If I can get Sarah out, Werewolf is later. I can go stuff like Forge, Nico, Wasp, Quake, Mysterio, Hitmonkey, and just go to town, make myself a huge bishop. If I happen to have a zero cost Thor, that's awesome. If I didn't see Sarah, I can go Jane Foster to end. I can go Thor, Jane Foster to end the game. Now I have 2 to 3 zeros if I got Beta Ray also, right? Mjolnir, Stormbreaker, Wasp, that's 3. I can play those 3 zeros with Mysterio, Forge, Hitmonkey. That's like a plus 6 times 2, 12 power Hitmonkey. Oh, sorry, Mysterio is also 3, so more than that, right? But like, you get the idea. This is ultimately a completely huge deck that has 2 completely different patterns to win. This one is sort of built on the back of Tucker's deck. Tucker had Grand Monkey, a deck we featured last week. This is a similar concept to that, except updated. I think I personally would end up cutting Shadow King. A lot of people won't run a deck without a tech card, but I don't really want to hit my Mysterio with it, or hit my Bishop with it, like, or hit a Forged card with it. So I'd probably just run another good stat stick in that spot. But hey, to each their own. All right, this is our Thor's Bounce. This is made by me. This is a nice simple bounce deck. It's going either Hitmonkey or Werewolf. Again, this is an either or deck, not a both deck. It can just beast up a bunch of cards to play them again so that they're free for Werewolf. You can Grandmaster that beast to make sure you have plenty of cards in hand. You can a thing that you could conceivably do here is you can go Werewolf, and then you can beast on 5 if you don't have Jane, and get a bunch of cheap cards, and then that Werewolf is going to jump to the beast lane, and then you just have a way to make that Werewolf huge as you're dropping Hitmonkey, which is just silly strong. Hopefully at that point you've drawn your Mjolnir or Stormbreaker, which would be really cool, or you just leave them in hand and who cares, right? Like, they're not requirements to make this deck work. You can win just on Hitmonkey and Werewolf, and the Thor package is just an extra 3-card package that can help you win games that synergizes with the Werewolf and the Monkey. You're not going to be able to do all 3 in one game, but you should be able to pull off 2. Spoiler, this is where I'm starting with the card because I am a bounce lover. This is our standard lockjaw, again by me. When I do this, I don't really love Doom. This isn't bothering with Odin. This is saying, if I can get it with Grandmaster, that's great. If I can't get it with Grandmaster, oh well. Jubilee with Grandmaster on turn 4 and 5 is my backup plan for this deck, just in case anyone missed that synergy. You can, if I'm missing my draws, if I don't have Lockjaw, I can go Jubilee into Grandmaster on 5, and then like I feel like I'm in pretty damn good shape at that point. I could even do that with Kyera on turn 5, which seems like it's very strong. And at that point, I can just drop whatever my big crap is that's left on turn 6 and probably have a reasonable shot at winning the game because there's so much freaking power here. I've also got Dracula because this isn't bothering with anything really small. If it can go something like Thor, Beta Ray, Jane, Dracula, and have a reasonable shot at winning the game without ever seeing a lockjaw. So I think that's pretty freaking cool. So that's where we are with this deck. I think it's going to be good. I think Lockjaw's a little boring, to be perfectly honest. It's an explored archetype. We'll see if Beta Ray makes it interesting enough for me to want to play it. But this one uses 3 of this month's cards. So at the end of the week, when you need to do your weekend missions, this is one to remember. Oh wait, no, not this one. This is the more classic version from our friend Den. Den is the head writer over at Marvel Snap Zone. He basically built this list because it's going to try and abuse Odin into a couple of hammers. So you get Odin to hammers, you get an early Doom, you just have a bajillion power at the end of the game that your opponent really can't stop if they have priority, right? I mean, I guess they can try an Goliath, but they don't know where you're going to play hammers plus Odin. Hammers plus Odin at the end of the game ends up being 8 power from Odin, an extra, not the original, an extra 12 power, so we're at 20 power already, and then an extra 6 power on Thor, so we're at 26 power play at the end of the game. That's pretty damn strong, and that obviously just complements the whole Lockjaw thing, so it's a really, really nice play. Yeah, I don't know, it's just a good deck. I think this is a cool version. This is much more classic. You don't run Dracula in this version because it's running more cheap stuff. It's using Wasp and Nightcrawler to try and get more stuff to throw into Lockjaw. We've got our Thorjaw Scar deck. This is different than the Grandmaster deck from before, right? Yeah, this one doesn't bother with Dracula. It's slightly different. It's not different enough to really go into any great detail about. It's running Jeff instead of Grandmaster as an extra way. It cuts the Dracula, instead goes back to the Odin. It's sort of a mix between the previous 2 decks. I had it in my head that this was more different, but I guess it's the same basic concept. It's, again, a mix between the previous two decks. If you get the Thor or Beta Ray early, thanks to Jaw, thanks to just luck, you cheapen your Scar, and a cheap Scar means you can throw something extra into Lockjaw. And throwing something extra into Lockjaw, usually in this deck, means an extra big thing. That was my theory craft here. So I think that should work relatively well. Again, this one, I wanted to keep the Odin play intact, so I did. No Kyra here, though, so you're more at risk to Shang-Chi. The grand reveal. This is Venspan. This is just a regular old person who made a deck on Marvel Snap Zone that I think is cool. So this is, this is the classic on reveal version. You can, a thing I really, really want to do is I kind of want to Zola a hammer. I know that's not great, but I could also Zola Beta Ray. And then, I guess I don't have time to Jane then, right? Oh no, I can Zola Beta Ray on 5. Then I can Jane on 6 if I've gotten Magic out. Oh no, there's still not a time for that because when the hell am I playing Magic? So I'd have to go Ravonna, Magic, Beta Ray, Zola, Jane, and then I could just go to town with like Odin or Wong and hammers and win the game, which sounds super fun. I could obviously just Wong, Panther, Zola. I can Wong, Panther, Zola, Odin if I got Magic out, which seems pretty freaking good. I can go White Tiger into Odin, get a bajillion of those, and then still drop a Stormbreaker or a Mjolnir on that. Grandmaster gives me a similar pattern of play and a way to like get away from an armor on my lane or whatever else I wanted to in order to Zola. So, and it also could cost 1 because of Ravonna. This deck is really cool. I'm excited to try it, even though it's not generally the type of deck I prefer, just because it has so many ridiculous combos. I think it's going to be super duper fun to pull off. All right, final thoughts. Does Beta Ray look good? So Lockjaw is good, and this card goes with Lockjaw, so it has a shot. Hitmonkey and Werewolf are good, but don't go well together. He helps them synergize a little bit more. Again, that's the deck I'm trying to start with, and if that deck is good, then he's going to be great. I think he's going to be okay, but probably a little too awkward to be consistent. As always, please check back Friday to be sure. We're going to look at the Spotlight openings after we talk about the 2 Spotlight cards. The first of which is the Eater of Worlds Galactus. Series 5, 6,000 tokens, and he is a big bad, which might or might not still have meaning, but he is never going to drop in series, according to the devs, or not at least for a very, very long time. On reveal, if you're winning this location, this is your only card here, destroy all locations. He's the ultimate combo/meme card right now. There was a time when he was really great. He was the scourge of the meta, and everyone hated him. Second dinner, Glenn Jones, at least as long as he is at the helm, is never going to let that happen again. Vincent, he was good again with Eliath. He just got nerfed again. That's the whole point of him. He's going to be a presence that is rare and you can win with, but you're not supposed to win a lot with, not supposed to be at the highest levels of the game. With all of that, he's a surprise card. With all that the case, he's probably not worth it, except that he'll never drop, and he's really cool. So if you want to play this really cool card and you have Electro and Wave, and Eliath, then feel free, but you probably don't want him. I have a bunch of Galactus decks. The first is the Junk deck by Bohe. This is a standard-ass junk list, except it runs Nimrod and Galactus. The fundamental logic of this deck is that sometimes Galactus is a endgame surprise finisher. Sometimes you can get Galactus off on turn 5 with X23. If you can, Eliath should win you the game. Null and Death are pretty damn strong there, too. And if you get Nimrod out on turn 5, right? Let's say you get a Nimrod out on 5 and they're just avoiding a lane, or there's a, Death's Domain type thing that they can't get into. You can Galactus that, and you can end up with 2 Nimrods in that lane, and that's a good way to win that lane, too. So, it's just an extra card to this deck. I think this deck is cool. Is it amazing? No, it's got a pretty good win rate, though. And props to Bohe, a Marvel Snap Zone writer of great renown. We've got King Venom, another streamer. I believe King Venom is Portuguese. I say Spanish sometimes, I get yelled at. Speaks Portuguese. I don't actually know if he's from Portugal or Brazil. I believe he's Brazilian, but someone will correct me if I'm wrong. This is cool. This is Thanos Lockjaw Galactus. This had a really, really high win rate for a little while. I think it's super duper cool. It's basically saying sometimes I see a Galactus with my wave time stone thing, and because I'm Thanos, you don't expect it, and I can win the game. And if you can win the game that way, sweet. If you can win the game that way by going Galactus on 4, then you can, on turn 5, drop kind of whatever that will claim you priority. Think Devil Dino. And then turn 6, Eliath still wins the game. If you do that on turn 5, same basic concept. Eliath wins you the game. No one expects it. No one sees it coming. This is a really cool deck. Next up, we have Galactus. This is our friend Interrobang, who is the king of Marvel Snap Twitter, not X, Twitter, and is a streamer. If you're up late nights for me, I live on the Eastern time zone of the United States, so he tweets kind of late. Streams kind of late for me, but Interrobang, with an E at the end for Twitch purposes, is a awesome person who you should check out. Intero has this really cool list that is basically built around getting Galactus off, although you can win with Goblins, Professor X, and Orca, or alive. We've covered this deck in great detail on the channel prior, so if you're interested, I urge you to look around and check that out. It was about 3 weeks ago. It was right before Blob took everything over at the turn of the season. You can tell that I covered this deck because these are my real variants for it. And I'll take any excuse to run that Daredevil, which I think is my favorite variant in Marvel Snap. Although the Galactus that will be replacing this hip Galactus is in strong contention. All right, next up we have Den's Junk Galactus. This is actually not Den's list. I don't know who made this originally, but it's a standard list where you go like, you basically are trying to win using your Annihilus Junk package, because 4-cost Hobgoblins and 2-cost Green Goblins are good. Sentry into Storm lanes Void into Storm lanes are usually wins. And just like Celine making things really, really weak before you send them over is great. And sometimes you just like send a Goblin and Hobgoblin over in the same lane, and you're just like, oh, cool, free Galactus. And then you win with the free Galactus when they can't get over the top of that negative. Like sometimes up to negative 14 in that lane. And then they have to beat 19 in that lane if you've Galactus. And if they had anything else there, when you started sending crap over, it's really hard for one card to beat that, right? So Galactus auto wins some games for this deck. It's a very cool deck. Props to the creator, who again, I don't believe was Den, but I could be wrong. I think Den is just sharing this one for one of his tier lists. Black Dama has a Galactus deck that he's been telling me about forever. I finally had a chance to play it, and I think it's great. Nico into Electro is as good as advertised, because you can make you can make Electro either a demon, or you can blow it up to draw 2. In either case, snap, 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 you are going to win the game. Most of the time, any damn way. This can also win the classic way. You'll note a lot of the same Galactus stuff where you can wave Galactus Alioth, Electro, Goblin, Galactus Alioth, so on. You can also just Electro into Professor X to win a lane fairly often. You could, and then a Hobgoblin into an Alioth will win another lane pretty good. And if they get priority somehow, then, well, Shang-Chi is in the deck. It's a very strong deck. Huge props to Black Dama. This is a super cool deck, and I love the Nico inclusion. Nico should probably be in most of these decks over whatever ones. Although it's hard to cut Nebula, because Nebula will totally end up drawing cards to a certain location, which is a thing you really want when you're goblining and galactusing, because you can fill that location before they're quite ready with a goblin, or you can let them try and fight over that lane, play in it, seem like you're fighting for it, and then Galactus elsewhere and just get away with winning the game. Daredevil is huge here. Jeff is huge here. Jeff gives you a surprise lane to Galactus in. Daredevil lets you know whether you should Galactus, Professor X, or Hobgoblin. It's all around just thing of beauty. Really, really great job to Black Dama. All right, our second spotlight card is Elsa Bloodstone. Elsa is a 2/3 Series 5, 6,000 tokens, and former Series Pass card. It was a completely different card at that point. It was a 2/2 that gave +3 whenever you filled any location. Then it was a 2/2 that gave +2 whenever you filled any location. It was no longer seeing play, and then they nerfed it into the ground. And after you play a card that fills this location, +2 power, which tells your opponent way too much information about what you're doing to be actively super useful. It's still good. It probably needs the +3 if it's only going to be this location, though. Although then we're welcoming back Kitty Pryde. So I guess be careful what you wish for. I think it should be +3. It is not currently. It is currently one of the 2 or 3 cards in Marvel Snap's history that the nerf most upsets me for. If you're interested, I have a huge article on Marvel Snap Zone that covers every card released between September and the end of December, and what it tells us about their design philosophy, what it tells us about their player base's reactions, and all of that good stuff. It analyzes every single card before forming conclusions. I honestly didn't know what my conclusions were going to be when I started the article, but they formed as I examined things, and I was able to draw like 10 conclusions about the way they operate and how I think they should operate from it. Elsa is a prime suspect that comes up not only in her section, but looms large throughout the article, because I think her poor design, and bluntly, I think she was poor design. She was upon immediate look, way too strong. So her poor design led to testing in a poorly designed environment, which led to cards like Werewolf and Blob being insanely strong because they were tested in a world where Elsa was giving everything +3, and they could be as strong as they wanted because they weren't really toppling Elsa. All right, our first is Jane Foster dealing with two hammers. This is Teo Jarston, another wonderful content creator. This one is basically saying, okay, so what if I did a bounceless with these cards? And I think it's cool. It's got the Kitty, Angela, Elsa package because Kitty still gets reasonably big on top of Elsa. If you pack Elsa and Angela into one lane, you're just gaining a lot of extra stats. And your job then is to like Bishop, Thor, Beta Ray, Jane, and then you just drop yourself a big old monkey, win the game. I think it's cool. Is it amazing? Is this like, oh my god? No, but I think it's cool. I think that these cards just need a buff. I think Kitty, Angela, Elsa just need a little bit of a touch up for them to be really great. I could even see Bishop getting one more power to start. So that's where we are. I think that these are cool. Next up, we have Bounce. This is a classic Bounce that's running Elsa. I built this for when Electra was buffed a week or so ago. This is built off an old W deck. W had an Electra Bounce deck with Elsa. Collector gets reasonably big with Kitty Pryde. Honestly, probably easier to play Collector with Angela than not, except Angela works with other cards and Collector doesn't really work with other cards, except Collector works fine with Falcon and Beast, and Angela doesn't really work well with those. So, como si, como sa. Like, I think they're relatively parallel cards at this point in terms of their power. This is a good deck. I don't know. Like, it's just a regular bounce deck. Is Electra important here? Not even a little bit. Is Maria Hill important here? Not even a little bit. They're just giving you extra optionality. You can run whatever ones you want. You probably could run Hawkeye and Iceman here and just be slightly better off. But the important part here is this is a solid home for Elsa. We have Genlock. This is another Bohe deck. I like Bohe decks. Bohe loved this deck for a little while. This is what he hit Infinite with last season. The season before, it all runs together a little bit. But this is a nice, simple deck that says if I can go Jean on Goose where they're not expecting, then they can't play cards, right? Like if I can do that to fill a lane, then they're going to have to play cheap stuff to end the game. And if they have to play cheap stuff to end the game, I can Doom elsewhere, win that lane. I can move a Vision out of there. I can win that with Ms. Marvel, etc., etc., etc. It's a mean, strong deck that is not to be messed with. If you're interested in Gene decks, by the way, we had a different cool one yesterday. But yeah, I think this is a cool place to go. Props to Bohe for it. It is a place where Elsa is solid because Elsa, Goose, Jean, and then like Jeff in there is pretty freaking strong, right? All right, conclusions. You don't need Galactus. If you want him, hey, just know you're getting a meme card. The devs are never going to allow him to be meta for long. Elsa just isn't worth the trouble right now. She needs a buff. Can that buff happen? Sure, but we don't know when. Beta Ray may be good, but unless you're flush with resources, it seems like he's probably a no. We'll know if he's in meta decks by Friday, though. So unless you really love Hitmonkey Werewolf shenanigans, and Hitwolf Werewolf shenanigans are going to get better with next week's Black Swan, although I don't think that's a Beta Ray build deck, which is problematic, right? So unless you are like obsessed with some of these combos, this is like an absolute wait till Friday. I don't think it's that great. All right, certain tiers of support come with thanks on our Patreon. We've got Models, Pretty Chill, Fothor, Inc., No Flex, Mandatory Burnout, Matt Conduit 23, Good Dog Gamer, Kierdick Lee, Mikey Hijinks, DG Winfield, Cables, Rob Silverman, Matt H., Abigail Giesland, Direwolf, Ocularis, Jane Everett, Spike Jones, Coy Ray, Louis Antunes, JD McDonald Leonho, and the homie Min. Thank you all so much for your support. If anyone else is willing, please check out the Patreon. I think we do great stuff there. So reiterating one more time my final thoughts. Chill out on Beta Ray. He's probably good, but probably not the breakpoint for this deck to be great. We will know very quickly if he turns out to be that breakpoint. If he is, check back here Friday. We will tell you. Cool. For now, this is one of the easier skip weeks to save tokens. Hit that sub button, hit that like, hit that comment. Don't miss out. Ring that bell if you want to be damn sure you're not going to miss out. We got a whole notification gang that we really appreciate. you're interested, if you're willing, check out the Patreon. But hey, your free support is great. If you would like some extra stuff, we're more than happy with that too. See you tomorrow for another Snap Take. We got great decks for you, and the giveaway kicks off. Peace.